because we want to talk to our guests because this is going to be a fun one. Right then, hello there, everybody. Welcome along to Talkin Con, a cup of tea with an Englishman in San Diego. We are going to dive straight into this episode because we've got ourselves some great guests that we've joined. We managed to herd this bunch of cats together and put them in a sack, and we've managed to get them together. We've managed to get them here. But very quickly, a couple of people have joined us to say hello. Michael P., good morning from Colorado Springs. Good morning to you. Andrew English, hello from London. Into the Blue Mister, evening all. Aaron Navis, hola from sunny but chilly San Diego. We know chilly. It started to hit winter here in the UK. We get it. Clyde Nee, hello Leonard. We've got Solistrous Meg. Sup everyone. I think a lot of people are excited about this particular episode because this is one that I've been looking forward to for some time. I'm just going to dive in and welcome the White Noise Studios chaps. Ryan, his camera's turned off, or he hasn't got his camera working.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, good.
We'd love to see you, but
yeah,
obviously, I'm guessing he's nude. I don't know.
No, well, I mean, I am, but that's not the reason. I read up on telemetry a few months ago. And in like a crazy tinfoil hat moment, I disabled loads of stuff on my computer and haven't figured out how to turn it back on yet.
No worries. Listen,
I went into the registry and everything. I've probably got to just completely wipe the computer to get this bloody webcam working. It's seriously been a problem, but let's not talk about my webcam.
So that's the phase of tape. That's the phase of the lockdown that you're in, right, Ryan?
Yeah, I had to go that little bit further. Like,
yeah. The CIA want to see my chest hair. That's the
I mean, you say that as a joke, but
oh, good grief. This I've been announcing or been talking to people as kind of like a bookend to a bunch of things that we did, including this, which I'm going to bring up, which is the panel which we did at MCM Comic Con in London in the October of 2018. It was the first time I'd really heard about White Noise, and I think it was like a month. I mean, we were trying to work this out with Dan before we came on air. About a month after you'd done your big reveal at a industry event. If you can kind of remember the timetable of when that all came together.
I mean, we never quite did a reveal, but we did talk to retailers at the MCM thing. So
yeah,
yeah.
So this is kind of like a 2-year and 1 and a bit months kind of bookend panel to that. Kind of seeing how things have progressed over the last.
Yeah, just looking at that photo, I'm like, oh, back when we were in the happy timeline.
Oh yeah, when we were all allowed in the same room together.
Yeah.
Let's just bring that up again. You're actually sat within at least a meter distance of each other. It's a strange time.
Back when there was no need for distancing.
Yeah, absolutely. But certainly what I want this to be is a little bit more of a round table where we all kind of like dive in and bring up topics, have conversations, and discuss about the way that the last 2 years have been for all 4 of you. I think it's safe to say that the response that has been to the books that you brought out over the last couple of years have just sent all four of you into a whole other level. I said this to Dan at the beginning before the rest of the guys showed up, and I'll say it now to all four. I'm going to get sick and tired of saying congratulations on the response to ... Okay, because all of the books have been incredibly well received. All of the books have been incredibly well received, so we'll just skip that and just dive in and talk about them. I think we'll go around the room and just sort of kind of either introduce yourself, but also talk about the books that you've brought out under the banner of White Noise Studios. We'll start with Dan. The books that you brought out have been phenomenal. And we can bring up a couple of the screen shots of some of the titles. But Dan, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'd say like these are books we brought out under the White Noise banner, in that everything we do is White Noise by default. So yeah, I guess the last 2 years, a lot of my time has been taken up with Lucifer and the Sandman universe. I've done 2 volumes of Coffin Bound. And this year in particular, my efforts have been primarily on Homesick Pilots, which is my new book with Casper Wingard. We did Limbo together back in 2015. And this is our new book. And The Picture of Everything Else, which comes out next month as well from Vault. And that FOC is tomorrow, if I can just like sneak that plug right in there.
Everybody,
you do right. What was that, Ram?
I said everybody buy it.
Yeah, I mean the art that I've seen from inside has just been gorgeous.
Yeah, I suspect after this he's going to be very in demand. And I met him through Ram. He was one of the artists on Black Mamba. In fact, the entire creative team I met through Ram. So I pinched the entire creative team for that book off Black Mamba.
Oh, I'm glad. Successful in that, in putting cool people together. So
you're the glue that holds the team together. Ram, the books that you've been bringing out, including the multi-award nominated Blue and Green. Do you want to give us a rundown of what the last 2 years have been like for yourself?
Yeah. So as far as creator owned is concerned, The Savage Shores came out in 2019. And then I moved on to doing a image book called Blue and Green, which came out in November and has had a good response so far. Apart from these, I've also previously done Paradiso, Graffiti's Wall, which were all books that I know you think that we've gone to another level, but I feel like it's been a slow step-by-step rise with the number of books that we've put out. And apart from the creator-owned work, I also do. I'm the ongoing writer on Justice League Dark and Catwoman at DC, and other things that are yet to be announced.
Excellent stuff. And we'll go next to the man in black himself. Ryan, if you'd like to talk to us about what you've been up to.
Since we started.
Cool,
yeah. So creator own wise, I think we started the White Noise thing back with Void Trip and Paradiso coming out together. I think that was the first time we put our logos on stuff with like connecting covers and everything. So that was a book I did with Clay Klaus a couple of years ago. And then what's taken up most of my time has been Fearscape, the book I've done at Vault with Andrea Muti and Vladimir Popov. I think it's Popov. I've never actually said his name out loud. And then this year, the sequel. No, sorry. The next book that happens to take place immediately afterwards in the same universe, A Dark Interlude, which isn't a sequel. Sorry, slip of the tongue there. Too many reviews been lying about it, so I got mixed up. But yeah, that's the thing that I'm playing with at the moment. And it's yes, life's slowly driving me insane. But hopefully he'll do the same to the readers, so it'll be worth it.
Excellent stuff. And last but not least, Mr. Patnadel, if you could, if you can somehow summarize the last 2 years of the books that you've been up to.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I did Friendo in 2019. That came out sort of the last time. That came out with sort of Fearscape and that came out with Fearscape and These Savage Shores and Deep Roots. So that was sort of, you know, what Vault I think internally calls sort of White Noise Wave 1 or Phase 1 or whatever. That went quite well. That was Martin Simmons, who's doing Department of Truth now, which is obviously tearing up all comers. Early this year, I did some pretty well received tie-ins to Marvel's Empire event. I did some prequels. Basically, there was a Celestial Messiah one and a Swordsman one. I had a good time on. Had a couple things drop. Giga, which is a sort of mech murder mystery thing. That I think issue 2 drops in about a week and a half. But that issue 1 did pretty well. We've got a second print dropping next Wednesday, which is obviously very gratifying. Doing that with John Lee, Roche, and Aditya. And actually, I mean, just to add to what Dan said, Roche and Aditya, I both met through Ram as well. So yes, he is the binding agent.
I feel like I'm the white noise fixer.
Yeah, man, absolutely. And I also I just had a graphic novel drop through TKO called Red Fork, which is a sort of Appalachian cosmic horror sort of set in US coal country during the opioid crisis, which is ongoing. Obviously, that just dropped, and I mean, it's only been out a couple of weeks, but I mean, I think people like it.
I actually did also prep up a screenshot of that as well, and why on earth it's disappeared from my folder, I have no idea, because I definitely
Gremlins.
I'd really definitely wanted to let people know about that book, because my God, yeah, congratulations on Red Fork, mate. When people talk about, I mean, it's quite embarrassing to talk about the books you brought out this year, because when we talk about Giga, and then everyone said, well, this is career best work for Alex, and then you brought out Red Fork, and I went, no, that's career best, and it just keeps getting better and better.
There's a weird thing, right, with all of us though, where sorry to talk across you, but super quick, where we've kind of we've synchronized, but in a really kind of cater-cornered kind of way, in the sense that we all have our own distinctive approaches to things, but like we're all bringing out nominally kind of horror books this year. You know, Dan and I are sort of dipping our toes into sort of mechs in a very sort of, you know, in a very sort of 90-degree angle to sense kind of way. It's odd how, you know, we never discuss these things openly, but they just sort of, they seem to sort of emerge fully. You know, we talk every day, and then we sort of seem to sort of go off and sort of fashion our things in our little sheds, and then come back and sort of compare notes. And then, yeah, it's been a really odd year in that respect.
Well, that was going to be one of my first questions, and I'm going to dive into that. I would definitely want this to be a round table thing where we all kind of like ask each other questions, because that's going to be one of my first questions in a second. But first things first, just a couple of comments that are coming in already. Gang, if you want to ask any of the guys questions, do jump in, please. This is all about you and your comments. So let's just I think Ryan has the right idea. Just put a pickup instead of video. That way no one knows you're shirtless and haven't groomed yourself in 3 weeks.
3 weeks?
3 weeks. And
Clyde
and Clyde in Knee, GCHQ is always listening. So yeah, it's I get it.
Big fans.
I get it. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, the question, because I asked this of Alex, and I think I asked this of Dan when I had them on separate episodes. How often you do talk, and like you say, Alex, you just said that you talk on a day-to-day basis. Is this the reason why we've not had a White Noise podcast? Because that would just put too much pressure on the lot of you to come together and actually record something.
No, I think the prime reason why we've not had a White Noise podcast is laziness.
Yeah, I mean, we tried to do a
I don't think
newsletter.
laziness can be ever put on any of you.
There
I
was
feel
also
like
a thing where we were really minded about it. Do you remember? We were talking about it and we were kind of going, yeah, but it can't be about comics.
yeah, exactly.
what would it be like?
Well, anything but, right? Because
Yeah.
then you turn off the podcast and then you go make the thing that you've just talked about for an hour or an hour and a half. And you really don't want to just constantly be thinking comics all the time. So I thought...
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This evening, Right Noise will be discussing yams.
But I remember you, Alex, you actually ordered a mic for this. I wonder if it's sitting in its box still somewhere in your apartment.
No. Right. This is private, right?
No,
Yeah,
this
sure.
is a live.
No, this is definitely not private.
We're not live. Don't worry about it.
Literally the opposite of private. Oh, we're
Yeah,
not
okay.
live.
No, I cancelled the order
Hang on.
because Leah shouted at me. You have a child.
Stop getting expensive mics. Yeah, no, I think the reason we haven't, on a more serious note, I think the reason we haven't seen any kind of White Noise, hey, we're gonna do a podcast, or I mean, we had a few newsletters that went out, but I think the reason you haven't seen anything more serious on that note is because we've always wanted to keep this on a kind of informal vibe, because I think the more structured and more formal and more tangible you make something, then it has demands of you, and then all of a sudden that kind of creative impulsiveness, that kind of creative serendipity that you used to find goes away, because everything becomes structured. Everything becomes, oh yeah, we have to do this. We have to go on a podcast. We have to talk about it.
Yeah, once something has demands of you, then you're gonna find ways to resent it, especially when you're like, it's not worth that. As in, it's not worth turning it into that, because what it is works.
Is Alex hiding behind his name tag?
Yeah, he is.
Good grief. Ryan and Alex are doing a great job of making this a real, visible and visual experience. But I mean, we want to see that.
Making a podcast.
Well, I mean, that's what we're seeing right now, right? So we're cool doing this. Yeah, this is what it's like. This is what it's like 100% of the time on White Noise Chat. Just less PG-13 than this.
I mean, you asked why we don't have a podcast. This is kind of why we'd, yeah.
I mean, if anything, I want to see Alex Paknedel's flumps-like beard, because I think he does look like a flump. But I don't know if he remembers the flumps, because it's a very bushy beard, sir. It needs seeing. It needs to be enjoyed and embraced. But there we go. So you all get to see each other's and work, and you've all shared as the projects have been coming through. I'm going to go around and ask, who do you think has put out the best or the most impressive work of the last 2 years? We'll start with Dan. Sorry, man, I'm throwing you under the bus. Deal with it.
I'm not answering that. I think everyone's done. To be honest, and I'm going to sidestep the question very hard here and say, I kind of resent the idea of comparing art, and I think it's something that we slip into in comics far too often, where we sort of go, oh, this got whatever on Sodding Comic Book Roundup or whatever, and it's art. It's a very, very strange way to treat it. We're making very different books, and we're doing different things at different paces, and once it becomes a single marker of what that success is, then we're going to start making less interesting stuff, because we're all going to be trying to hit the same beats, and we're all going to be trying to do the same things and reach the widest audience. And this studio is definitely not the place where we're making like the McDonald's burger of comics.
Okay, so for Dan, then his books are better than everyone else's.
That's what I heard as well. So.
Yeah, I heard that. Ram, I mean, okay, not the one that. Okay, that was a harsh question, and it was deliberate. But which are the ones that have kind of caught your eye out of the rest of the output?
Yeah, I'll talk about moments where I was reading everybody else's work, and I went, "God damn, that was cool." I wish I had done that, or I wish, I was thinking in that direction. And so I was reading Coffin Bound, and I actually wrote the foreword to volume 1 of Coffin Bound. And when I was rereading the whole thing for that, I definitely had a moment where I was like, oh, this is what he was going for. And I didn't see it when I was reading issue 1, but now that I'm reading the whole thing, it works. And that's cool. Just from an artistic point of view, to know that there's something there, not notice it in issue 1, and then read the whole thing and get a sense of like, oh, this is the thing that I could not see when I was reading it in the beginning. That's cool, and I wish my work did that. Red Fork from Alex. Just reading that, I know Alex and I get on the phone quite often, and we talk about character and plot, and Alex always self-deprecating as he is, keeps saying like, oh man, I don't know how to make things work when it comes down to character. But man, Red Fork is all character. I know it pitches itself as horror, but the horror in that really just builds up quite slowly and gets to a point really towards the middle of the book where you're like, oh, okay, here's the full-blown horror thing. But the underlying dread of it, the underlying humanity of it is there from page 1. And so brings me a lot of joy to read that and go like, man, Alex is really pushing himself with this book. This is really cool. And Ryan with Dark Interlude, I've been messaging him recently going like, I'm going full Ryan O'Sullivan with my XYZ comic because I'm doing some meta stuff. And the more I read Ryan's work, the more ideas I get in terms of how can I experiment with, putting kind of insinuating, breaking down the fourth wall, but within comics, if you will. And so I think that's really the joy of being part of this group for me, is to look at everyone else's work and know that they are each aiming for something unusual, artistic, not easy to achieve, but cool.
Excellent stuff. Good answer. Ryan, highlights for yourself of the other guys' work?
I mean, they've kind of covered it already, but it's very difficult talking because obviously we've all got high opinions of our work, and I've got a high opinion of all their work. So I can't really sort of say which I like the best because I like them all for different reasons. And as Dan said, best doesn't really apply.
I have to say here, Ryan, that you confessed to me that you thought Brigands was the best thing that you have ever read.
By you. So like you need to, keep maintaining that, 2 years ago. But also don't interrupt me again, yeah? So no, I was going to say like the one thing I remember that stuck with me was I was reading Coffin Bound. No, I wasn't even reading Coffin Bound. I'd read it, and then someone else had put a page of it up on Twitter with some of the narration on, and it was really, really good narration. So much that it made me angry. Because we all think we're the best. That's the truth, right? So when you see someone else doing a really good page, you get angry. Like, no, they can't all be that good. So I went back and read it, and it was. But then, because I'd enjoyed it, I didn't mind so much. But yeah, I remember getting angry that Dan had written such a good page. I think it was the page where
I'm really glad I wrote that book primarily to upset you. So
absolutely worked. But it was where the guys are like scalping out someone's eye, I think, and the cadence of the narration was really, really good. I was immensely jealous, but yeah, that really hit me. But I like all of our stuff. I read it all, which is the highest possible compliment. But yeah, that one thing in particular pretty much hit me up.
we've got somebody in the comments at the moment. Don't worry, Alex. Okay, I kind of got the drift, and I'm going to leave asking Alex unless you want to jump in. Hi. Yeah, we've got someone in the comments who would like to say hi. Aditya is watching. Hello there. Hey, it's my boys, says Mr. Bittika. Like I say, we had a great chat this week, and indeed people are saying hi. Aditya, Homesick Pilots was #1, was terrific, as was your contribution to the title. Thanks, Dan. Really proud of that book. Dan, Casper, and Tom killed it.
Thank you.
I mean, I said it as a kind of like a throwaway thing at the beginning. Is Aditya an unofficial member of the White Noise Studios gang at this point?
Yeah, there's definitely a few of those as well. There's
Casper. Yeah, I mean, Aditya has kind of been that go-to guy for me in terms of lettering, and the more books we put out, I think the rest of the White Noise guys also started seeing that, hey, this is someone who really knows what they're doing, and that's what you want to do. You want to work with people who A, know what they're doing, but also B, will push you to elevate your own craft and your own work. So yeah, I think
it's someone that you can like definitely jam with as well. Like he'll come back with different ideas and different things, like all for the lettering. Like he really treats it as an art. So we have to say that because we now know he's listening, but
Well, Aditya is also saying Alex's beard. He didn't have that last time we chatted. It's positively luxurious. And
there are woodland creatures living in this, man.
Solicitor Smeg, it's winter. Don't think of it as a beard. Think of it as a chin warmer. So yeah, that's we'll leave the beard alone now. That's enough of the comments about the beard. The other thing that I wanted to bring up is off the back of another chat that I did about a month ago now, and this was with the Vault chaps. These are Vault Comics has kind of become an unofficial home for the White Noise Studios gang. I'm curious to know why Vault? Why did you find yourself coming together or coming to that stable to release books? What made Vault Comics somewhere to release the books you wanted to put out? If anyone wants to chime in.
I think Dan was the first one to do books there. I think.
Yeah,
it's the first
one. Weird one, right? Because I mean, the way we sort of found it was a serendipitous sort of thing, in that we started the studio in a pub. Remember those?
Yeah.
we were in a pub, and it was Ram and Ryan and me. Alex was not in London, so he missed that one. But we brought him in immediately after. But when we sat down the first time, and I think Ram floated the idea of let's start a studio and sort of officialize or slightly officialize sort of the fact that we're all doing books in similar spaces and use each other as more of a support group. And then as soon as we sort of said that, we started pooling all right, so what's everyone got on their slates? And it turned out everyone had a book coming out with Vault, which were all unannounced at the time, and had just sort of, we'd all sort of found them through. I mean, Ryan and I think had approached them. We were already sort of worked together and stuff. So we sort of had that conversation before, but the realization that every single one of us had something coming out through Vault the next year was also something that made us sort of go like, oh, okay, so these guys clearly respond to the kind of things that we're all doing.
Yeah, and I think people forget that. I think just bar Alex, everyone else has had books at Image as well.
Don't rub it in.
Yeah, but you're gonna have. I mean, I won't spoil your announcements. But the idea is less that we found a home at Vault or at Image or anywhere. the idea that of calling something a white noise book is that you, regardless of where it's being published, you will come to expect a certain quality to it, a certain artistic point of view to it, a certain nuance to the stories. And so that was the idea in any case. And that works great. And Vault were one of the publishers to recognize that, hey, these guys are doing something interesting and cool. And so we should publish all their stories. And once we recognized that we all had books coming out through Vault, we said, yeah, well, why don't we just say, hey, white noise, wave 1. And once that happened, then Vault came back to us and said, we want you guys to do another wave of books, and we'll put it out as white noise wave 2. And so I think it was as it was with the studio, as Dan mentioned, I think it was more organic and serendipitous than any kind of structured approach to, hey, we're going to pitch all of this as a studio. I think the studio appears to be more organized than it is really.
Well, in that regard,
it's
then
funny though, 'cause we were at Comics Pro in Portland in February. They're doing the presentations and everything, and we were kind of a bit taken aback because the when it came to sort of announcing our books together to this sort of retailers consortium, I think Vault called it like the second British invasion or something, because and yeah, that was a lot.
no pressure.
We mean no harm.
Yeah, and it was kind of cool to see retailers responding, just realizing that, oh, you guys are all a studio. Oh, you guys all put out books that did well for us. That was kind of a cool reaction to get. Yeah.
I'm surprised then when the industry has responded well and the audience has responded well to the collective, and you're saying that you want to keep it as light and informal as possible. Why you haven't made it more of a formal affair then? Because there's clearly been a positive response to you as a collective.
I mean, it's the same question that not everything needs to be a franchise. So not everything needs to be formalized. If people are responding to something, it's because of what it is. Then don't change what it is just because people are responding well to it. Is the same reason I get asked all the time, are you doing another D Savage Shores? No, D Savage Shores is a good story because people respond to the story as it is. Doesn't need a second part. It doesn't need so same way studio doesn't, at least in my opinion, doesn't need structuring or formalizing in any way. I think we all value our creative independence just as much as we value each other's voices and inputs and ideas. So
when we first started,
we all sort of think that way in comics, isn't it? Like, don't think anyone ever sort of came up to Joyce and went like, "Man, I loved Ulysses. Like, when are you doing Ulysses 2?"
Like, he did a prequel. There's literally a prequel.
Finnegan's Wake was a sequel to Ulysses. You're like one of the only people I know who've read it.
I think we could more say that that's
Middle Earth
expanded universe.
I'm sorry, it's just like Dark Interlude. It's not a sequel.
Thinking back then to that, those first kind of moments when you were all going up on a stage, either at MCM with myself or with the Diamond presentation. From that moment when you kind of when you came out as White Noise Studios, what were you imagining was going to come out of that announcement, and how has your expectations either been matched or exceeded in the 2 years that have happened since? Ryan?
Oh, I don't know. I sort of went into it blind, just, hi, here's the books we've got, let's see what happens, and it all went really well. I think it's because like the expectation I had for it was exactly what happened. It's kind of weird to answer it beyond that. Like, I hope that all our books will be associated with each other. I hope that, in a similar way to how the first the British invasion were influenced by things outside of comics, so are we. So there's parallels being drawn by other people, not by us. We're not the ones saying it, and that's nice.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of sort of chest thumping in comics. So it's nice that we aren't doing that. We're just making good books, putting them out there, and people are responding. And I think that's one of the reasons why, to get back to an earlier question, that's one of the reasons why we're so protective of not changing it, not making it a gimmick, not making it an imprint, because it's working and we're making stuff we're proud of, and that's the point, I guess. So yeah, I think in terms of what my expectations were, they were met and exceeded. I'm very happy with where we are, and yeah. Sorry, sort of tape it out at the end there, but yeah, I'm just nothing more to say really.
In that case, then, obviously the expectations of what the books were going to do and what your own work, what everyone's work was going to do, everything then changed in March this year with lockdown and with the pandemic having the effect that it had. The books that you all have worked on obviously had the run up leading up to pandemic. For some of you, I know that you had delays with the books coming out, so there was a very tangible effect on the work that you did. But in terms of your writing, how has 2020 affected each and every one of you in terms of your own attitudes, your own thoughts to society, to politics, to just your own state of mind as well? How's 2020 affected you? Picking someone at random, Alex.
Yeah, okay. I mean, in all candor, I mean, it's been rough, but it's been rough for everyone, right? I mean, it's been odd in terms of, because I mean, I don't know whether this is on topic, but I think Giga in particular kind of, this is going to sound really crass, but please take it in the spirit in which it's intended. I think Giga really kind of benefited from everything that had happened, in the sense that it was one of the first new books to be announced after the lockdown had begun. And I think, and it was really weird. I mean, I noticed it at the time. Normally I'll sort of, make a book, there'll be I'll announce a book, and, it will, it'll get a decent response. That's, I'm not complaining at all, but this one kind of blew up in a way that I kind of wasn't expecting. And I think, don't get me wrong, I love the book, I'm very proud of the work, but I think a lot of that was relief. I think it was because, people, I remember speaking to the Vault guys, and I said, look, we don't even know what the distribution's like in the next couple of months. Are you sure you want to announce this? And, Adrian and Damien, who are very kind of perspicacious guys, went, yeah, just announce it. We'll figure it out later. And they did, they made it work. But with that announcement, I think there was a sort of collective sigh of relief across fandom and the industry. Okay, new comics coming. And we kind of rode the crest of that wave. So it's been quite, so it was quite a sort of special year, I think, in that respect. I mean, apart from everything else that was kind of going on. But in terms of how I responded to it personally, it's just been weird, man. I mean, it's just, everything's kind of happening outside your window. I mean, I'm writing in the same room that I was writing in. I just weird thing where the last people I saw apart from my wife and child were in Los Angeles in like February. And there are people that I saw in LA, and I haven't seen my neighbors in the last 8 months. So yeah, I mean, it's felt like, for me anyway, I mean, getting into writing, it's like been writing with permanent jet lag.
Good description.
Yeah.
Anyone else want to chime in with their thoughts, especially about how if they have been affected with the way that the books have come out?
I mean, yeah, I think we talked about this a bit last time, but my stuff got really sort of, I mean, everyone's stuff stopped coming out altogether. But I had Coffin Bound Volume 1, which came out in theory the Wednesday that we went into lockdown, and Diamond UK shut down, and all that kind of stuff, and all the books that I'm supposed to be having that were supposed to come out over the summer, the books that I now have launching in December. So it's just definitely been like a pivot work-wise, but also I think as to what has been interesting, or what I found interesting over the last year. Like I read 2 volumes of Coffin Bound, which is a book all about meditating on death and the sort of run up to death. And the reason we've decided not to go straight into a third book of Coffin Bound is I think there's more interesting things to talk about in the wake of this year. We've had enough death, I think, for more than anyone needs.
Around preoccupation is needed. Yeah.
But like, there's so many there's just interesting things to like talk about and think about. Like the terror of boredom is something or the boredom of terror, I guess, to invert it, is something that's become really interesting to me this year, and has definitely been like creeping into my writing and things. Like the idea that
you're going back to Beckett, going back to Beckett.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think everything back to Beckett, but yeah, I mean, Waiting for Godot being about standing around and just waiting, but in
that almost the opposite reaction to that, in that I think with society has started turning towards methods to kill boredom.
Yeah,
like everybody needs to be permanently engaged, permanently online, permanently visible, and it's all now happening from your seat, your desk, and your screens.
But
whereas before you would have to, exactly, it works, but it works in a very different way to the way it used to work.
I'm not convinced it does work, because I think it's when we talk about being engaged, we're talking about all those little endorphin hits, like especially in a sort of online culture, and like your phone's pinging up and bing bing bing, and there's a little endorphin hit every time you get a notification, and you're engaging with stuff. But we're all addicts now. We're all engaged all of the time. Like we
it's too much, to be honest.
Podcasts in the shower, we're engaged the entire time, and like any addiction, you need more and more and more engagement to get any kind of hit, and you just end up in this state of kind of like perpetual boredom. Like Alex said, like it's kind of like I don't know if that's the same kind of thing you're talking about, but that sort of perpetual jet lag kind of feeling, because we're just sort of semi-engaged all the time, and it's exhausting. But we're also like, everything that we're engaging with, or a lot of what we're engaging with, is really, really scary this year. So we're also kind of a bit scared all the time, but you get bored of being scared as well. And I think we've seen a lot of people getting bored of getting scared, of being scared, because they'll now go out without a bloody mask on.
Yeah, I've never more strongly felt the need to pack up and leave and go spend 10 or 15 days in the middle of nowhere, talk to nobody, keep my phone away. And it's odd that it comes in the middle of a lockdown where you're supposed to be socially distancing anyway. But I think social distancing in terms of physical proximity, and social distancing in terms of being able to step away from the whole thing and look at it with some measure of disconnect and distance, are very different things. Yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Oh.
No, sorry, just that because of this technology, we're all kind of in each other's heads to an unprecedented extent. So we're sort of physically socially distanced, but there's an irony there, that the more sort of the less physically proximate we are, the more kind of intimate things become online, and probably to a very kind of toxic extent.
Because reality is tempered by its natural state of existence, whereas digital reality is untempered, unfiltered, and 100% all the time.
It's funny, man. Like, I mean, I mentioned this a while ago, but like I was reading a thing a year ago, and it really sort of brought everything into sharp relief for me about, I mean, I can't pronounce the thing, but that kind of Scandinavian thing of, I think, hygge.
Yeah.
That idea that, everything's kind of soft furnishings, and, you have to, like, mandatory coziness, I think, is one of the kind of closest translations. But I was reading about it, and and it was just this long article, and they're saying that Hug becomes a big thing. So I do apologize to people. I know I'm butchering it. I genuinely don't know how to pronounce it, but they were saying that it always becomes very fashionable in times of crisis, right? And the last time it happened, obviously, was like in the run up to World War II. And you had all these people in kind of continental Europe who were, covering everything in sort of, animal skins and, like roaring open fires and, the smell of cinnamon, killing themselves with comfort, really, while, there's fire raging outside. But these people, and I don't know why this stuck with me, but I just found it kind of tremendously evocative. The Germans ended up calling these people internal emigres. And I just feel like this year we've all become internal emigres,
To an extent, yeah.
I'm wondering how much then, as writers, you've retreated into the work to kind of filter out some of the noise from the distractions and the outside world. I mean, Dan, you were talking about the constant social media notifications and that endorphin hit and the kind of the interaction. How much have you kind of buried yourself into the projects that you've been involved in? And obviously we'll see the results of those in next year and the year beyond.
I mean, definitely bury myself in the work, and then in just, I don't know, YouTube yoga. That's been the other big one for me. Get away from that, all of it. I don't know. I've been very busy. The first lockdown was a bit weird in that projects were sort of dying and across the board because no one knew when we were coming out of lockdown. Everything had just ground to a halt. There was lots of sort of pencils down and sort of thing. This lockdown's been very different to that. I've been as busy as I could be, but I don't like the sort of. There's a thing we slip into very quickly in comics, and I think in art in general, where we talk about, we sort of use how busy we are as a sort of moral thing. It's like I'm doing well because I am so busy, and I'm actually busier than I want to be at the moment. I don't like working that way. I don't think it's the most productive. I guess it's been more the circumstance that sort of forced that to happen rather than wanting it to happen. If you're just engaged with the work all the time, then I think the work gets less interesting because you need that time to sort of mediate and meditate on things, and you have to engage with all the crap that we've just talked about not wanting to engage with, because that's where we are, and you need to be present for it to be able to talk about it.
Okay, we do have a couple of comments that have come in on the chat. Johnny Fitz is watching. Hello there, Johnny. Welcome along. Huge fan of your work, all of you. Saying hi to Alex and asking, how much do you love what you do as a career, and what advice would you give to anyone aspiring to break into comics independently? I think we can open that to everybody, really.
Yeah, sure. Just quickly. I love it. I sometimes hate it, but mostly love it. And in terms of kind of breaking in, I forget who said this to me. Someone said this to me years ago, but they said, breaking into comics is like breaking out of prison. Every time that route gets employed, it gets bricked up after you. There is no set way of breaking in. And this is going to sound really pat, but it's something that I know, Ram and I discuss this a lot, and, I'm very broadly in agreement with him. The only thing you have any control over actually is the work. That's it. You produce good work and hope. It may happen, it may not, but the only thing you actually have any control over is the work. Everything else is kind of peripheral, really. If you're not making good work, nothing will happen. That's what I know. That's not very helpful. There's the usual stuff. Talk to editors if you can. Try not to bore them. try not to upset them. Try not to insult them. That's always a good one. But yeah, broadly, just make good work, and be culturally and I would say intellectually curious and omnivorous. Don't just read comics. If you just read comics, you're not going to make good comics.
Which is where I was actually going to
Go
ask
to art
what
galleries, read book. Well, don't go to art galleries now. Don't go to art galleries now. But yeah, look at art, read novels. Read popular science. Yeah.
Which is weird because the question I was going to ask next was, what comics have you been reading outside of the White Noise Studios stable? Which are the ones that you've been reading yourself and catching up on? Ram.
Just picking up stuff that's on my desk right now. So I'm reading Trees, finished volume 1, halfway through volume 2. It's very. I mentioned this to Dan earlier. I mentioned it in White Noise chat. I think it's very unusual Ellis work because it's trying to be a novel as compared to the more comics like work that he has done before. And then I'm reading, I just finished reading House on the Borderlands, Richard Corbin's adaptation. So I think they were both interesting. I was looking for books that were unusual, that I hadn't read before, but were still highly interesting, recommended. And I've made myself a list, so I will be going through it at some point.
Anyone else want to jump in? Stuff that has caught your attention. Also, not just comics. I mean, what other media have you been embracing? Oh, okay.
Also been reading The Sunken Land Begins to Rise, which that's why all the books cross over. That's why we write about mechs at the same time. But yeah, it's by M. John Harrison. It won the Goldsmiths Fiction Prize. And yeah, I'm enjoying it so far. I'm about halfway through it.
Ryan, is there anything that's been catching your attention? And also, not necessarily just comics either, but like I say, books, games. I don't know how many of you are gamers.
I've been playing lots of City of Heroes, but that's not really. That's like the anti-creativity side of things. That stops me doing other stuff. So that's probably a bad example. Let me think. I've been reading a lot of Inio Asano's manga. Like he did Goodnight Pun Pun and all the sort of long form things, but he's done loads of little shorts as well. And I've been reading up on that because what I'm curious to always find and look for are comics that sort of take an iceberg approach to how they're made. So in the same way that Hemingway and all those sorts of iceberg authors would like give you just enough to understand what was going on and make you figure out the rest yourself, I'm looking for more comics that do that. Because I think that a lot of comics, especially with so much of it being exposition heavy due to it being a lot of genre fiction and having pictures, it tends to over explain. So I'm really curious about comics that under explain and force the reader to connect the dots themselves. And a lot of Inio Asano's stuff does that. So I'm sort of reading it and then rereading it, picking it apart like a, arts college student sort of thing. But yeah, it's Inio
really
Asano.
But it's something that I think manga can do, in a tankobon. Like you've got the space to be able to sort of go into that, to really explore those nuances in a way that you're not kind of hidebound necessarily, I think, by sort of Western formats. One that have you looked at Blood on the Tracks yet?
No.
Matt, I mean, similar, not similar to Asano, but in terms of, it's vastly decompressed, right? But it just lingers on people's expressions for page after page after page. It's incredible. It's just something that you couldn't do in the West.
It's interesting to look at how they do that with this huge page count and then think, okay, well, how can I translate that down into 22? Is there a way to do it?
Yeah, this was something that Homesick Pilots was actually, because Homesick Pilots is the most. I mean, it's probably fair to say it's the only manga influenced thing I've done, like directly. And like I was like, oh, okay, let's see how much of like sort of Urasawa style sort of pacing and things we can sort of put into this very sort of American comic. And yeah, like obviously it's a huge difference. Like you start having to find ways to sort of cut corners and work that into ways that actually work in a 22 to 26 page issue. It's I think it's doable, but you have to use different tricks.
What's been the biggest surprise of the last 2 years for yourselves, especially with the books that you've done and with the way that they've been responded, the way that they've been received? What's been the biggest surprise for yourselves, just generally for over the last couple of years?
I mean, I'm always surprised when people react well. I know it sounds disingenuous to say, but I genuinely had a conversation. If Aditya is still listening, I genuinely had a conversation with Aditya going like, I have no idea what Blue and Green reads like. I have no idea if people are going to hate it or love it. I see only flaws with it. I hope it does well. And then to get the kind of response that you get, I think it's surprising and amazing every time. Especially also because, and I think the rest of the people, the rest of the White Noise guys are of a similar mindset in that, like, none of what we do is written to get an audience response. It's written because I want to write this. And then if it gets a great response, great. If it doesn't, well, that's, a year spent on an artistic preoccupation that I had. So it's always kind of cool to see the work get picked up, talked about, people doing, threads. Every time someone takes like a moment to write 20 minutes of writing about a book that they read, each time you look at that, you're like, someone, felt the need to take the pains to talk about this work, which was really cool. And one of my biggest concerns was whether, that kind of approach could translate to the work I've been doing at DC and Marvel and stuff like that. And that's been, I was quite nervous about, like, okay, I did These Savage Shores, I did Paradiso, and Blue and Green, Graffiti's Wall. None of those are superhero comics, and I didn't have, and I always bother Alex and Dan about this, that I don't have the kind of semi-encyclopedic knowledge that they have about DC characters or Marvel characters, and so I was quite nervous about writing stories for Justice Dark, Catwoman, and to see people react well to that is also more of a relief than amazement, but it's good. Yeah.
How much have you turned to the chaps when it comes to that knowledge, when it comes to Justice League Dark?
Oh, I get smacked back so hard when I don't. Like I mentioned, this whole thing I'd written up, and I said, I'm gonna do this with the plot in Catwoman. I'm gonna create this new character, and this is the name I've given her. And after I say the whole thing, Dan's like, that name already exists and is a DC Comics villain, right, Ram? I go, oh crap! I've now built an entire connection and a history and a background based on that. So there's always stuff like that. It's usually functional stuff. I'm not looking for story advice as often, although I do sometimes. Like I'll call up Dan or Alex or Ryan and go like, hey, I'm stuck here. I don't know why this doesn't work. And it takes a third person's eyes to look at the thing that you've done and go, that's why it doesn't work. So that happens on occasion, but more often than not, it's just like, I need a character to do this really specific thing. And I don't know what character. And then 5 minutes later, Alex will be like, have you considered this character who appeared once in 1970s in this one run that somebody did? And so that's always really helpful, really useful to have.
one of my favorite things that I was stuck on a plot point, and the book's not out yet, so I won't talk about which book it was or not. But I was stuck on a plot point, and I was talking to Alex on the phone about it, and he came out with the phrase, "Well, I've just Googled black holes vomiting, so I think I've fixed your problem for you."
Excellent stuff.
I had a weird thing. Oh, sorry, is that question still open?
No, go for it. Yeah.
No, I mean, just really quick. I mean, I can actually kind of pinpoint a moment. I mean, it was, isn't it? I'm sure this has happened to the other guys quite a lot, but I mean, it was a bit of a banner. I mean, I hope. I mean, I won't name names because it's obviously sort of intentionally personal, but I found that it's the last thing that you'd expect, right? I did one of those Marvel one shots that I did this year was the Swordsman one, and I'm far less kind of structurally focused than the other three guys. I come to them for advice on structure a lot because I think my stuff is I tend to extemporize more, and I've been trying to sort of siphon off some of their juice recently, but the only rule of thumb that I can kind of stick to with my stuff is and I'll say this to anyone who asks is it works for me, right? Is if you don't feel it, then I'm convinced if you don't feel it, then the reader won't feel it, right? And so this Swordsman one shot that I did, I made it quite a sort of mournful thing. I sort of tied it into something very personal, and someone reached out to me just a couple of months later and just said, I just wanted to say, a relative of mine passed, and that issue really helped. It really helped me to kind of bring it into perspective. It's been a really rough year, and that felt like a miracle. It was the weirdest thing, I mean, not, reviews are nice, sales are nice, but that's communication, right? That's, you put something out into the world and someone picked it up. That's what it's all about, right?
Yeah, it's your fiction, your fiction speaking to someone's experience rather than direct communication, and I think that's where the beauty of fiction lies. And I like when you realize that it opened up a lot of thoughts for me on writing and how you write and why you write, when you realize that it's not you communicating with someone else, it's your writing communicating with someone else's experience of life.
Sure.
Which is great. Yeah.
Cool. I mean, I want to get into kind of that connection. It's interesting how you talk about that as a connection with your audience. I want to get into that in a second. I also want to talk about the connection you have with the working with the big two, working with Image, and the really kind of dive into some of the books that you've got coming up. But hopefully, guys, you'll indulge me because we've invited somebody else on. We're going to talk about her Kickstarter. So we're going to take a little bit of a 5-minute break. If you want to kind of have a pee, go off, get yourself another refill on the cup of tea while we talk to Kat Calamari. Is that okay?
Yeah, tell Kat I wished her good luck with her Kickstarter.
Likewise.
Absolutely. Well, we'll tell what we'll very quickly introduce her, so you can say it to her, say it to yourself. Welcome on, Kat.
Hey,
Hi,
thanks,
Kat.
guys. I was listening and for the great conversation, and thanks for having me.
Pleasure.
I'm really excited.
Excellent stuff.
Welcome
Guys,
to White
we'll
Noise.
come back to you in a couple of minutes' time after we've
Sure.
talked to Kat about this Kickstarter that she's got running at the moment, which is into the final couple of days. Okay?
Yeah.
Lovely.
Good luck.
Sounds good.
Excellent. Right then. Some people are actually turning off their cameras. They are literally disappearing. Well, yeah, there you go. We've actually turned the cameras off. So Dan is now stripping off, and I don't know what on earth he's doing in the background. Okay, moving on. Welcome along. This is kind of like a commercial break to the show. Something we're doing a little bit different because I wanted to showcase this incredible Kickstarter that Kat Calamari is doing. If you are unaware of Kat's work, if you've not heard of Comic Uno before, quite frankly, you are missing out. I've been a fan of her output for quite some time. Certainly as a YouTube comics reviewer, but also she's done work online. Tell you what, very quickly, if you want to introduce yourself and do a little bit of a quick bio as to your history in comics and also leading up to this Kickstarter.
Of course. So yeah, I'm Kat. If you guys haven't heard of me, Comic Uno. Been doing YouTube comic reviews for about 10 years, which is crazy. And I've worked all over the internet for comic book news. I work for Newsarama right now and DC Comics, DC Universe. And also worked for Fandom, IGN, and TV Guide in the past, which is pretty cool. And I have this Kickstarter for Like Father, Like Daughter. This has been a project for about 5 years. We're up to issue 7 right now. It's about a high school girl. Father left her to become a full-time superhero. Everyone in the world loves him except for her. And then she inherits his abilities. So yeah, really excited about this one. We have 9 days left. We're like $50 away from 7,000, which is crazy. We already met our funding goal. So if you back up this project for as low as $1, you get over 20 indie books, including another trade. So Tart, which just ended on Kickstarter. And these are like big books too. You got like David Paposi, Spencer and Locke. You have Mysticonic High. You have Jupiter Jet. So these are like good, great indie books that you're getting 20 of them, over 20 of them for $1 if you just support. And that's it. So yeah, there's some really cool stuff for the campaign.
I mean, I think that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on, because what you've been doing with the campaign, the fact that you have folded in other kind of books to kind of instead of what the traditional model is to head down, focus on your particular book, and you've kind of embraced the community of the whole thing, and I think that's been really impressive. Is this your first Kickstarter? Is this the first one you've kind of gone in for?
No, so I've done Kickstarter since issue 1, actually. So I used to work for a company called Short Fuse, and since issue 6, I just because of creative differences, I guess we'll call it, I end up launching my own publishing company with Comic Uno, and did that with issue 6. So I've been doing Kickstarter since issue 1 on their account. So we did 1 through 4, I believe. Issue 3 I self-funded, and then we had a trade, and issue 5 was part of that trade. So that's why you won't see an issue 3 and issue 5 Kickstarter, just because of those reasons. And then issue 6 I did on my account, because again I was self-publishing it. And then issue 7 is the current Kickstarter, and so this is like my 5th Kickstarter, I think, which is crazy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it's gone incredibly well. You've got a nice little target. Like I say, you broke target, and you're now over there you go, 6.5, over 6 3/4 of the goal over the pledge of 5,000. How stressful has this particular Kickstarter been in regards compared to the others?
This has actually, I guess, been easier. It's weird to say that. It's been an easier time just because I've been doing this for a long time. I had a lot of prep. I feel like every single one, it's still an emotional roller coaster, because especially this was a little longer than my previous campaign. So my previous campaign was 25 days, and just after, you learn even more about Kickstarter, 30 is usually the sweet spot. It's very difficult on the creator and the person running the Kickstarter, which is me, because it's a roller coaster ride, and you do have, especially at this moment, like the middle is a little bit of a plateau compared to what you were doing. So we are still always in the green every day, which is wonderful, and not every Kickstarter has that. We're always getting backers every day, but it is slower than what, and no matter what, if you're Scott Snyder or Jimmy Palmiotti, you're always going to have this slower part in this middle, just compared to what you were doing in that beginning. So that's always a little stressful, and again, a bit of a roller coaster ride, but you learn how to deal with those times. And I think that's why we are in the green with the plateau, because you learn how to make your campaign exciting and how to like kind of resell your campaign every day. So we've been doing pretty well with that. And knowing that last week, and especially those last 2 days, things usually pick up in maybe a little less or sometimes the same amount as your first day. So you could really skyrocket. And that doesn't always happen, but for the most part, it does happen in those last 2 days because Kickstarter gives a notification to the people following. They kind of push the book a little bit more on their page and on their algorithm. So you learn a lot as you keep doing these Kickstarters, and it's always stressful. It's always hard, but it's always very rewarding, and it's very nice when it's all funded. So I'm not worrying about the book's not gonna be made. The book's gonna be made. Now it's just to make it even better, and more importantly, I think get it into more people's hands. That's what I'm most concerned with.
Yeah. What was the thoughts of the timing of when the Kickstarter came out? Because we're now at the end of a very long and difficult year for a lot of people. Funds are tight for a lot of people as well. It's one of those things you have to have in your head when putting something out there and you're asking for that connection with an audience. What kind of concerns did you have at the end of the tail end? Well, in pandemic 2020?
It's been hard, definitely. Luckily, I did a Kickstarter in June, so I did it in an even worse time during the pandemic. So I had a June Kickstarter, so I kind of knew what that was all about. And I think I was more nervous with that Kickstarter than I am this one because, obviously a pandemic's still happening and everything is kind of going to shit in 2020. But that's why I try to keep my prices so low. Even if there wasn't a pandemic, I would do so. But, for people who just want to give $1, I want to give, again, those 20 books. And I see Kickstarters that definitely have higher prices, and I could probably make my books higher prices, but I'm going to make it a $5 for a digital copy. I'm going to make it $10 for a physical. And again, you're getting a lot of stuff with it. You get prints and all this fun jazz. So I just want to give people bang for their buck. I look at it on the other side because I support a lot of Kickstarters. I support a lot of comics. So if I was looking at this Kickstarter, would I support it? Would I think that price is good? And I would in that regard.
Excellent. Well, like I say, I wanted to bring you on very briefly to kind of showcase and point people in the direction of the campaign. It's just a few days to go. I think it's is it 9 days now?
Yeah, 9 more days.
9 days to go. The URL's there on the screen: kickstarter.com/projects/comic uno/like father like daughter 16 with dashes. Do go check out the project because if there's somebody who I'd like to support, it is Kat, because I think she's an incredible talent, and the project, the story sounds great. The book and the campaign look fantastic, and I wish you all the very best and the best of luck with it.
Thank you so much, and hopefully we'll do this again soon.
Hope so too. Take care. Thank you very much indeed for coming on.
Bye. See ya. Bye.
Bye. Take care. Yeah, do go check it out because it is well worth having a look at kickstarter.com. Search for Like Father, Like Daughter. You'll find it on there. Excellent stuff indeed. Right, we have ourselves a couple of the boys that are back. We've got Dan, we've got Ryan, Ram's there. I'm sure Alex will join us once he's put his trousers back on.
Finished oiling his beard.
Of course.
What if he comes back and it's gone? Like the beard just completely gone.
That would be genius. That would be absolutely incredible. Talking about Kickstarter and the connection with an audience. Well, number one, what has been your support of comics via Kickstarter? Have you been buying any books? Is there anything that you've been picking up? This is to all of you, really.
Yeah, I'm pretty regular with supporting comics and picking up interesting things on Kickstarter. It's pretty much, I log on to Twitter, scroll through, something catches my eye, I'll support it. I tend to, or someone will DM me and go like, hey, have you checked this project out? I'm working on something and I'll support it as well. But it's where I made my first book, so I've kind of never quite gotten off that platform in terms of picking up books from new creators, old creators.
Anyone else?
A lot more. I've been backing a lot more Kickstarters just because we haven't had cons and things. So it's I guess the equivalent of sort of being able to wander around somewhere and pick up stuff like off the beaten track. Kickstarters definitely sort of filled that gap for me. Of course, like all that stuff, like, you sort of back it and then you don't forget about it, but it sort of goes out of sight, out of mind for a bit, and then it shows up in the post. So it's, yeah, you get to treat yourself twice.
Yeah, it's always cool because you get these kind of unexpected post deliveries and you pick it up like, oh yeah, I backed that a few months ago. Yeah.
Something with a handwritten like address as well. It's like, oh, this is going to be something cool.
Yeah.
I actually backed one a few weeks ago called Future by Cast Iron Books. It was written by Tom Woodman, I think. Yeah, it was. Yeah, that seems interesting.
Because I think the one thing...
As the editor on that one. It's her new publisher, so I want to check it out.
I think the one thing about Kickstarter is that it is very much a direct connection with an audience. You're very much cutting out the middleman. You're having a direct conversation with your audience. Is it something that, Ram, you say that your early books you put out on crowdfunding, is it's something that you've considered for yourselves, Alex, Dan, Ryan?
My first book was a Kickstarted book called Turncoat. That was a webcomic for about a year before I put it out. Yeah, back in the day.
You see, I picked that up at a con, so I didn't know I didn't realize that was Kickstarted.
I mean, it got put out by a small UK publisher afterwards, but no, primarily it was a Kickstarter to begin with, and before that, it was a webcomic that Klaus and I just put up online. And yeah, I mean, one of the really rewarding things about releasing a page a day online was seeing people come up with stories about where it was going. Because we got I think we went viral on Reddit one day because it was a story about a guy who kills superheroes for a living. So obviously, there was interest there. And then people started making up where they thought the story was going to go. And this was like a fair few years ago when I was, not quite where I am now as a writer. So some of these ideas were really good. And I was like, oh shit, that's not where it's going at all. but no, I mean, I remember the Kickstarter happened, and then I got like hugely long emails from people saying like what their thoughts were, where it was going to go, and how the book hit them and stuff. And I've never really, as much as the traditionally published stuff has been more creatively rewarding, the Kickstarter stuff kind of connected me with fans more, I think, just because I had to be in order to make the thing work. Whereas with traditionally published stuff, you release the book, you get a lot of talk about it during the week or the months afterwards. But with a Kickstarter, it's constant, especially with the build-up. Because, a Kickstarter isn't like a 1 day or 1 month thing. You've got to spend 6 months beforehand, hyping it up. That's what the webcomic did. So yeah, there's a part of me that misses it. But then that's nostalgia, isn't it? There's a lot of work involved there in constantly talking with your readers and stuff. So always keep your readers arm's length.
Right. Okay. Well, that was okay. That's an interesting way of folding into the next topic or the next bunch of questions. Keeping an audience at arm's length. Okay.
We can edit this. Yeah.
Yeah. Of course. Conventions then have been off the table as so much stuff in 2020. Do you miss the convention experience? And what I mean, I know that Ram, you did the process writing workshop for Thought Bubble.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on conventions, and do you miss them?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I was always quite selective in terms of how many conventions I did. The most I've ever done was, I think, 3 conventions in a year, which is Thought Bubble I did, San Diego, and one other convention in the UK. I can't remember which one, but or I'd done Thought Bubble New York and one other convention. I think the year that this year was going to be the first year that I was going to do both San Diego, New York, and do Thought Bubble here. I miss very specific things about the convention. I'm inherently mostly a lazy person when it comes to like physical work, which is I find it draining even to just sit at a desk and be like, okay, I've got 10 books here, 20 books here. So I don't miss that, but I do miss the, hey, I picked up this book like a gentleman showed up. I was at Nice one of the years, and gentleman from France showed up with a 5-page thesis he had written on Paradiso. Like years after the book had come out, I was like, this is amazing. This is someone's like college work, academic work had been to look at the role of fictional future cities in Paradiso. That was pretty cool. So stuff like that you don't get to enjoy outside of conventions, and I enjoy post-convention hanging out with these guys and hanging out with other creators that you don't get to see otherwise at cons as well. So that stuff I enjoy. I can't do the digital stuff. It's part of the reason why I said, I'll do the workshop at Thought Bubble, but I'm not going to do the desk thing because, like, really, if I wanted to get on a Zoom call with a bunch of people and chat, I could just DM Dan, Alex, Ryan, and a bunch of other people and just get on a Zoom call and chat with them. So I don't know. For some reason, the digital con thing just hasn't vibed with me. But yeah, I do miss the Thought Bubble experience, especially.
Yeah, Comics doesn't have its Christmas party this year.
What's that? Sorry, Dan?
Comics doesn't have its Christmas party this year. That's what.
Yeah, exactly.
Comics Christmas party.
So when do you think that you feel that you'd be comfortable with going back to a convention again? And this is to everybody.
Vaccine out. Yeah. People get their jabs. Once that's done, I think we should be rocking. We should be good to go.
Okay. If we could talk about the relationship with the publishers, and certainly with the way that the last couple of years have grown and your careers have developed. I remember a conversation with Alex at Lakes International Comic Art Festival, and a book. He got a book out. It was doing very nicely on Boom, but that was. I believe that it was kind of like at that point, it felt like the next level to your career. And I said, so yeah, we're going to be seeing you writing for Marvel or DC soon. And you turned around and said to me, I'm not interested. It's not something that it doesn't appeal. It's not something that necessarily appeals to me. I'm happy playing with the toys that I've got at my disposal at this point. When did that change, and how did that particular part of your career evolve?
Well, I mean, as you can probably tell from Dan's expression and Ram's expression, that was a patent lie. No, I was basically saying that to insulate my own ego from inevitable disappointment that miraculously never came. I don't think I was trying to be too cool for school. I think I was trying to insulate my own ego. But no, I was definitely, of course, it's like This
is the most impressive backpedal I've seen in a long time.
No,
I'm not lying.
I know.
One of those things where you go, she's not even hot. I'm not even interested.
Yeah, she's not.
She's not even hot.
No, my dad taught me to read with Marvel Treasury editions. Like, of course, I would gnaw through my own femoral artery, sadly. But yeah. So yeah, it was very nice.
And how did that kind of come about? What was the kind of call to get in onto those books and to kind of get into that aspect of comic production?
Well, I mean, sorry, was that addressed to me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, obviously, I mean, Dan and Ram have, very kind of storied DC careers now. But I mean, my limited foray was Al Ewing's doing. He, my understanding is that they were setting up Empire, and he was asked to hand over a list of names. I was in there, and the odds were in my favor that day. And then I got an email from Darren Shan, which went straight into my junk mail, and I didn't see it for a week. And then I got an email from him a week later saying, "Hi, Alex, just wondering if you got the email from us." And then, that was bad. Yeah, and then it got set up from there. But yeah, it was Al basically. Al really kind of. I mean, it wasn't just my name, but I know he was someone that he was someone who really kind of pushed for me to sort of get push to get my name in front of editors over there. He's a lovely bloke.
What was the challenges of putting that book together? Because I spoke to Al on an episode last week, and we were singing your praises about the work that you did on Empire. What were the challenges and what were the things that you wanted to achieve with that book when you put your pitch forward?
Well, look, I mean, not to put too fine a point on it. I mean, I know how this sounds, but I did want it to be a mic drop, right? I wanted it to be a mic drop from low orbit. I wanted it to be excellent. Not just because I wanted to impress the editors, but because I wanted to effectively kind of affirm Al's faith in me, because whenever you recommend someone, that's your reputation, right? When Kieran recommends people, there's some of his skin in the game, right? So I didn't want to show him up. That was one thing. But I mean, in terms of how it differed from working other places, I think it's the one thing that really struck me working there, and I'm sure Dan and Ron will say the same about DC, is that just how, and I don't mean this as a term of opprobrium, right? This is it's impressive just how well oiled a machine it is, and I think the hardest adjustment to make was knowing that once the script was out of my hand, apart from a very bounded window of time, that's no longer in my possession. It leaves my desk, and it's off to the artist, and it doesn't really get back to me until the end. Whereas wherever I've worked, when I've worked for other companies, I mean, the guys will tell you. I mean, I must be a nightmare to work with, because I will tinker with everything until the last minute. I mean, I'm horrendous that way, and you can't do that at Marvel. So it leaves your desk, and that's it. So
unless your name's Dan Slott, I've seen the documentary.
But so that was so I didn't have that sort of time on the back end to kind of fiddle with everything that I normally do. So I had to make sure that it was right at the front. And the guys will tell you, I mean, I was when we were at that Comics Pro in Portland, I was working on those 2 one-shots while we were there, driving these guys absolutely bananas. I wasn't doing anything social. I was just kind of going up to the room and just working on these things. But I was really kind of, I wanted them to be good to kind of such an extent that, I basically kind of fell off the plane and into the hotel and just went straight into it. But it all worked out.
I'm also curious about the conversations that you've all had, especially when it comes to the relationship between creatives and the companies. Dan, obviously, you've done Lucifer as part of the Sandman universe, which it's safe to say hasn't exactly been treated well in recent weeks and months with the paring back of the titles. How supportive have they been for you as a creative, Dan, as in terms of DC in the current landscape?
I mean, like really supportive. I mean, like, you know, my point of contact with PC is my editors. My editors have always done like right by me entirely. Lucifer, the last volume, is going direct to trade. I mean, it was always the last volume. We did 2 years on that book. It's, you know, the 2010s. That's a good long run on something, particularly something that's in that kind of Vertigo realm, which doesn't do Batman numbers. Like nothing in the Vertigo realm does. The decision to send that last volume direct to trade was one that was made, I think, primarily to help out the stores who had just come through a lockdown, were all really struggling, and because production hadn't shut down on a lot of Big Two books, because the writers and artists need to eat, so the companies were trying to keep production going. They were trying to keep making comics, but that also means, you know, comics come out weekly, and all of a sudden there was all of these comics that were being made that were stores were not going to be able to handle that many, you know, 3 months worth of books just suddenly being dumped on their doorstep. The production lines aren't set up for that. Their shelf space isn't set up for that. It was never going to work. So some stuff was pared back, and I think the decisions were mainly, obviously some of the decisions were sales based, but also something like Lucifer, something like the Sandman books, where we were always very much thinking on the trade end, and that was literally Neil's thing going into it. He said, don't worry about crossovers, don't worry about like jumping in and out of each other's books, just make books that are going to be on the shelf in 10 years time. That's what I want from you guys. So when we've always been sort of thinking in that direction, and it's been a trade focused thing, and it was coming to an end, the decision, I think, to send it direct to trade makes enough sense. Obviously, it's not how we wanted to do it. It's not how the editors wanted to do it either. But it means we got to tell our entire story. We got to spend a little bit more time on the last part of the story, which was nice. We got to finish the book with the creative team we started it with, which was very, very nice. And yeah, I mean, the book exists. It's coming out. It didn't come out in singles issues, but I'm generally speaking not as interested in single issues.
We've lost Ram. I was okay with having a pupper on the screen, because you know it wouldn't be video conferencing if we didn't have an animal kind of wandering past the screen at some point. So okay, who was that, Ram?
That was Ziggy, who was starting to whine that I wasn't paying attention to him while Dan was talking, so I had to pick him up and escort him outside of my room.
Fair enough. Well, tell you what, we will start winding things down. We'll let you get off and enjoy the rest of your Sundays. Obviously, this is for me being a little bit of a bookend session, certainly off the back of that panel that I did with you guys at MCM Comic Con in London in 2018. It's been a phenomenal 2 years for each and every one of you. I'm curious to ask what you see for the next 2 years of White Nose Studios. Anyone, if you want to chime in, what would you like to see for White Nose Studios for 2021, 2022?
I mean, there's bound to be a Yoko, isn't there? There's going to be a Yoko, acrimony. It's all going to fall apart. We're all going to write this
you were the first one to say that.
So which one does that make you, by the way?
Sorry?
Does that make you Ringo? I don't.
Why am I always the Ringo?
Amazing. This is an ongoing thing with Alex. People keep volunteering that he's the Ringo.
None of us said it.
Look, tomorrow, right. Everyone who said Ringo couldn't drum, right? Tomorrow never knows. Touche.
Listen, no, I will never ever. The best interviews I ever heard was with John Bonham's son, who was working as a tour drummer for Paul McCartney when he was this about 10 years ago. And the interview was with Paul, but someone asked John Bonham's kid about doing the tracks, and someone turned around and said, well, Ringo's pieces should be really easy, and he turned around and went, yeah, anyone who turns around and says that Ringo couldn't drum, you try and doing these fucking fills. No, doesn't happen. So that was one of my favorite. So no, I was not disparaging you by saying you are the Ringo, sir. But the 2122 White Noise Studios, what do you see for the gang going forward?
Well, one of the things I've wanted to do is, sorry, go ahead, Dad.
No, sorry. I was just going to say, I don't think it's going to be like the Beatles. I think it's going to be more like the Smiths. We have a big lawsuit on BBC One.
What, and one of us ends up being a massive racist?
Which one?
Alex, don't go there.
Don't.
No, one of the things I've wanted to see, and I think we will, is us kind of pushing the format and the medium to doing more interesting things, like kind of challenging the assumptions behind the format. Okay, monthly issues. Well, they tell a certain kind of story. They have to be episodic. They have to do this. Do they really? Is there a way to challenge that? Is there a way to tell stories in an interesting way using the format, using the medium? And I think you also start seeing, at least Dan and I have plans on a collaborative thing, which, I mean, we intend to start at some point, but we'll see when that actually comes out. Personally, I also want to branch out and do other things, do prose, do some TV writing, this and that. And so, as I'm sure, others in the studio have plans on too. So I think you'll start seeing the work kind of, at least for me, spread out like a web, doing other things. Yeah.
I was curious to know if any of you guys would be up for seeing the books that you've done or any of the projects that you've been involved in go to other media and go to live action or animation or whatever. Is it something that intrigues you, something that interests you, or is it just something that is outside of your hands?
I mean, to be honest, I don't think you can plan on it, but also you'd be silly to just completely ignore that as a possibility. If it happens, great. And obviously there will be things that kind of pulls in tow, with possibilities of adaptation work and all of that. But I'd be lying if I said I'm pretty sure everyone at the table here has had those conversations and is in various stages, et cetera, et cetera. So it's just one of those things. You want to write. You don't want to let the mechanics of it all take up too much space in your head. So you focus on the work and kind of let those things happen on the side.
I've definitely found it interesting that I've definitely found the stuff I've made that I've done with almost a sort of petulance of this will be unadaptable is always the stuff that has the most interest.
Yeah, because people want something new, right? So
yeah.
Okay, I spent a bit of time earlier on this year, just like a week, sort of work. It was just a weird thing, just kind of working on the Warner's back and just sort of talking to various people, and they're really smart. They're really smart out there, and I think if you, I mean, this isn't always the case, but I think if you sort of approach these things sort of cynically and think, well, here's the thing that's definitely going to be made, that's not going to be, they can do that. They can make those things themselves. That's not generally, in my very limited experience, what they're looking for. They want the shiny that's in your back pocket, not the one that's in your front pocket.
Interesting way of putting it. Excellent. We'll wrap things up there then and let you get off and enjoy your Sunday. If we can go around everyone and give you that opportunity to pimp the books that are coming up, the projects that you've got on the boiler at the moment, We'll start with Dan because you've got yourself some very impressive books on the way. Take it away. The floor is yours. The floor is yours. Go for it.
Yeah, the picture of everything else. Issue 1, FOCs tomorrow from Vault, which is out December 23rd. Nice bit of Christmas Victorian horror, which always goes together quite well in my experience. Which is our sequel to Dorian Gray, a turn of the century murder mystery in Paris, with sort of all sorts of supernatural shenanigans going on right before the birth of the Paris art scene. That's with Kishore Mahan, who's doing beautiful watercolors and acrylics and the whole thing. I don't think it looks like any other comics that are really coming out at the moment. And also coming out in December on the 9th, I have Homesick Pilots, which we've talked about a few times, which is punk kids piloting haunted house mechas through downtown California. One of those.
Well, I'm still waiting on the Spotify playlist for that. It's got to be coming soon.
We need to put that out. We have a home for it as well. We just need to put it out. Watch this space.
Excellent. Yeah. Ryan, if you can take the floor, what have you got on the burner at the moment?
A Dark Interlude is out. 5 issues planned. Go buy them all. Thank you.
There you go. Short and sweet. Excellent stuff. Ram, yeah, what have you got planned for the moment? Because obviously the DC work is ongoing.
Yeah.
What else have you got on the boiler?
Well, I've got another DC thing that's going to come out next year, which hasn't been announced, which is kind of the thing that I've been working on in the background while I've also been doing this ongoing work. And so I hope people will look out for it. On the creator-owned front, I mean, Blue and Green really took up most of my time. I was focused on getting that out. And then Anand and I are now moving on to working on the next Vault book, which is it's called Radio Apocalypse. We will let you know when we have an actual release date. And then I'm also working on books for Dark Horse with Evan Cagle and Boom, which is a unannounced project as yet. So all of that stuff will drop at various times over the next year at some point, all of which these guys have seen. And so I'm very, very excited about.
Excellent stuff. And last but not least, Alex, your projects, what's coming up, and what can we expect from you?
Yeah, so current projects, Giga. Thank you everyone for picking it up. If you did, if you didn't, there's a second print of issue 1 coming out next Wednesday with a spangly new cover. On the 9th of December, same day as Homesick Pilots, which I urge you all very, very strongly to pick up. Giga 2 also drops. Enjoying working on that. Red Fork's already out. But that's available in 2 formats, so you can either get that as a 6-issue digest in a box set from TKO, or if you go into your local comic book store, they should have the collection in trade. Did that with Neil Vendrell, who did Shirtless Bear Fighter. And in terms of what's coming down the pike, I've got a graphic novel that I've co-written with Helen Milan, who wrote McNevin and the Bloody Queen for Humanoids. It's called Superstate, and it's a collaboration with Graham Coxon from Blur. A sort of an anthology of sort of various sort of weird dystopian sci-fi themes. And nothing kind of concrete as yet, but I'm talking to various people about setting projects up. So, with good luck and a fair wind, you'll be seeing some interesting stuff from me in the new year. But, in the interim, I would just like to say, by the way, I mean, I know these guys are already pimped, but, I do get the opportunity to read these guys' work before you do. And, I think what Ryan's doing with the Dark Interlude is just so formally innovative. I think, it's one of those things where, I think when it's collected and people can see what he's actually doing beyond, because the thing is, with Ryan's work, there's always there's a wry smile behind kind of everything he does, but what he's doing is so formally innovative. I think it's going to just take people's breath away once they sort of see what he's actually achieved. I think picture of everything else, I think is, I use the term advisedly, but I used it earlier on, but I really do think it's a mic drop from low orbit. What Dan's doing is not aping wild here. This is definitely kind of new ground. It's I think it's an absolutely extraordinary book, and I think it's taking the conceit in a direction that just takes my breath away. And also, by the way, sorry, I know what Ram's doing with Evan as well, and I won't give anything away, but I'll use the term that I used with him when he described it to me. Spicy. It's that's going to be a really, really, really. You're going to want to keep your eyes peeled for that one.
Excellent stuff. There's something that I should have mentioned as well about Dan's contribution to Razor Blades as well. Which,
that.
It's something.
Yeah, we're both in that.
Else.
Yeah, Ram's in that as well. Yeah, really.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah. I was in issue 1. I will be in issue 3. Yeah.
Good. Got you. I knew about.
I'm in issues 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not sure.
The slow ingress of white noise into Razor Blades.
And, Dan, you're doing one with Lucy, right?
Yeah, with Lucy Sullivan, and she's just been showing me, she's been working on that last week, and oh my god, she's so good.
She's amazing.
Really, more Victorian horror for me as well, but in a very different space. I'm really excited for people to see that one.
I find it interesting that you're stretching out into various styles, and you're dealing with various very varying different types of stories, but there's definite strands of gothic horror amongst a lot of the work that you're doing. But it's been a pleasure talking to you to kind of bring you all into my little corner of the interwebs. And I'd like to thank you all very much indeed for coming along. If you'd like to tell everyone where people can find you online, please, so they can follow your various exploits. Dan, where's best to point people online for people?
Twitter, everything else points to the Twitter. I have Instagram, but I'm useless with it. At Dan PG Waters on both.
Excellent. Ryan?
I'm at Ryan O'Sullivan on Twitter.
Ram?
I'm at the right Ram as opposed to the wrong one.
And Alex? Who has multiple accounts, but which is the best one for people to go to?
Well, I can generally be found just on Fortin Services off Junction 25 of the M6. Just look for me there. Maybe give me some change.
I would heartily recommend keeping an eye out for him, if anything, because what he's doing on drums is amazing. So
I'm inventing breakbeat.
What's that? Sorry,
I'm inventing breakbeat.
Inventing breakbeat. Okay,
there's an argument, right? That Ringo. No,
Did you know this before you started getting compared to Ringo, or did you go and look up stuff about him that was impressive?
Right, my ego is gossamer thin.
I'm so sorry, mate. You literally just said loads of nice stuff about my book, and now I'm diving in on you. Sorry, man.
It's been a pleasure talking to you guys. Thank you so much indeed for coming on. And I hope that we get to invite you on either as a group or individually again to talk about your books as we go through next year, because it sounds like we're going to see more and more bigger and better things from White Noise Studios. To Dan, to Ryan, to Ram, and to Alex, thank you so much indeed for coming on.
Thanks for having us.
Excellent stuff indeed. So there you go. Do go check out the books from the boys. They really are on fire at the moment, and it's been a pleasure to see the careers evolve over the last couple of years since that initial announcement of White Noise Studios. Right, that's our show for today. Thank you so much indeed for joining us. Thank you very much indeed to Kat for coming on and talking about her Kickstarter project, and to everyone else, thanks you very much indeed for sticking with us for the show today. We do have ourselves a very impressive couple of shows coming up, which I'm very excited about bringing to you. Now, this Wednesday, we have been doing shows throughout lockdown, and we're doing on the Wednesday, if anything, just to keep my own brain in focus, just to have a sense of time passing. But this last one, which we're going to do this week, we're not doing on the Wednesday. We're actually moving it to Thursday, just to accommodate the guests that we've got coming on. So we are I'm very much looking forward to talking to George C. Romero, who's going to be joining me for the show. He's going to be coming on to talk about a couple of books that he's doing as part of Heavy Metal magazine. Obviously, what the name Romero brings to a whole number of genres puts a lot of weight and anticipation for what he's doing. But I'm looking forward to talking to George. That's going to be on Thursday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. GMT. And then on Sunday, going to be talking to Amanda Dibert. Now, she is someone who I've been very impressed with the way that she's been engaging with her fans online. But of course, she's got so many pans on the fire at the moment. So looking forward to talking to her about He-Man, talking about Wonder Woman, talking about the numerous books that she's been doing. And I've been very impressed with what she's been up to in 2020. Going to be talking to her about her year and about what else she's got coming down the line. That's Amanda Dibert. That's next Sunday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. GMT. Right, from myself, thank you very much indeed for coming on. I hope you enjoyed the show today. Once again, we would love you to support us on Patreon at patreon.com/EnglishmanSDCC. And of course, do like, subscribe, and hit notifications on all of the social medias so you know that we are going live with another Talkin Con, a cup of tea with an Englishman in San Diego. From me to you, take care, enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.